Okay, we are here in Spokane with Heidi Mund. And a few years ago, Heidi Mund confronted an event in a cathedral in Germany where there was a Muslim group that had come to pray. There was an interfaith type of meeting. And she spoke out against that and became very popular. And she's had a chance to speak out against Islam all over the United States and in Europe. And so we would like to just kind of talk to her a little bit about what has happened since then, maybe the spiritual climate of Germany. We know that there's some national pride has kind of rose up because of the immigrant problems that have come about. But she's a Christian and I'm a Christian as well. So our main motive here is to glorify Jesus Christ. But at the same time, there's an attack on the Christian faith. And so we want to deal with that and help people to understand what we're dealing with. Because a lot of people, especially in America, don't quite understand what Islam is about. They don't know anything about the history or the theology. And my wife and I, we've been involved in apologetics, that's comparative religion studies, and teaching on cults for 30 some odd years. So we pretty well understand what's going on with it. But a lot of Christians don't. They don't understand the threat. And I know that Heidi has been involved in this for quite a while now. And so she's gained quite a bit of insight and experience through speaking on this and doing evangelism and speaking about the problem of Islam. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about your life experience, what led up to that, and what has happened since then. I know your husband probably got in a little bit of trouble as well because of your popularity. And that's it kind of goes with the course, though. That's part of being a Christian. There's opposition, right?
Yeah. So after this 10th of November 2013, many things happened and changed. My whole life in general changed because many people got to know me, and friends and enemies too. And yeah, my whole life changed. And I received really many emails and messages via Facebook. And the most of them were really encouraged, who saw this video, who saw the report from CBN. And this encouraged me because I thought, okay, there's a purpose behind, and God wanted to use me for this little thing. For me, it's a little thing, to encourage the believers in all over the world, in so many countries, in USA, in Canada, in Brazil, in Norwegian, in South Africa, in Australia, and even in Germany. And this is strange because people came to me and they saw me, and they loved it. But after a while I organized demonstrations, and I spoke out the truth also about Islam. And something changed in Germany, because there we have alliances, evangelical alliance, but it's not only evangelical, they go together with the Catholics and with the Lutheran, the Protestant church, and they made a stand against me, so in public, but they didn't speak with me, but they wrote it or let it write in the newspapers. So this happened, and also because of that I got a lot of threats. They wanted to slaughter me, those nice Muslims. And my husband lost his job just because of because of what I did in the streets of Frankfurt am Main, and it was almost hell there. Thousands came against me and against this little group. So we were just demonstrating there. We used our right to demonstrate, and that was bad in their eyes. Even it is according our Grundgesetz. It's not the Constitution, but something like this.
Okay,
in
so
Germany.
you have freedom of speech.
Yeah, we should have.
Well, you're supposed to, yeah. And we understand what you're going through, because we have spoken out against a lot of cults, and immediately we come under threats as well. In fact, my wife right now is on administrative leave from her job because of she just basically spoke her mind. And then I worked for a school district, which I got in trouble because I have a sign in the back of my truck that addresses Islam as being a cult, right? Along with Mormonism and the Jehovah's Witnesses. And I mentioned on the sign as well that homosexuality is a problem. And so we've got a lot of enemies as a result of that. But in America, we have First Amendment rights. We can speak our mind. We don't have to agree on everything, you know. But like in your case, there's a spirit behind this, and the spirit of the Antichrist. And so if you're a born-again Christian, you become a target. So, and a lot of Christians are not used to that. And so when they experience that, they think that maybe God's telling them to stop. They don't understand the conflict. Well, what has happened, I mean, have you run into Christians in Germany that have been encouraged by what you've done? Has it given them more boldness, or is pretty much everybody against you?
It depends. What is very sad is we got a split of the Christianity in Germany, and because of the so-called refugees, because some are for it, and they were taught that this is very good, it's a blessing to take all the people, all who would come into Germany, and there is a remnant, I would call them, they see what is coming up and what is already there, and that it's really a danger, mainly to Christians and Jews and also to the other people, and it has started already. Yeah, and just recently, just in London here a few days ago, there was a guy that run down a bunch of people on a bridge, and then he killed a police officer, stabbed him to death. So it's all over the world. Right. But that's the history of Islam, and a lot of people are not aware of that. I mean, Muhammad, in the very beginning of his so-called ministry, he killed the Jews of Yathrib, which later became known as Medina, and then the town of Khaybar, a Jewish town. He murdered most of the Jews there and sold many of them into slavery, and took one for his wife at 6 years old, you know. So all you really have to do is study a little of the history, but a lot of people are ignorant of history. And you know, we say for those that don't learn from history, they're destined to repeat history. Right. You know, and a lot of Christians don't study even the Old Testament, so they don't understand the conflict between the Arabs and the Jews. They don't quite understand that. So it's a challenging topic. It really is. Okay, after your experience in the cathedral a few years ago, that became very public, how did people begin to contact you? How did they get hold of you? It was different. Some here from the States, from Washington State, they tried to find their former friends in Germany. They are still living in close to Frankfurt, and they made a contact to their friends, and they tried to find me in Frankfurt. It was funny because there was one day, and they just sat before me, in front of me, and we had a little Skype conference, and they were watching me, and I was not sure if they were friends or not, so I had to check it out, and then I found out they are a very nice couple, and these were one of those, and that's why I think through them, Reinhard and Annelies, God opened the door here to Washington State, and the other one was Dale Hurd, but I think this was before because they showed it on CBN, and he found me via a blog. It's a blog in Germany. It's called PE News, or you would say PI News, and they are pro-Israel and pro-America, and they came in contact through them. And so Dale Hurd from CBN found me there somewhere in Frankfurt, and it was, I think it was God's purpose to come together, and because God wants to use me and wants to use us. Yeah. Because, as you mentioned, it is what it is, you know. Sure. It's not just a religion. Right. Islam is not a religion. It's not for me. It's not, as Gerd Wilders always say. It's an ideology, and we need to understand that Islam wants to cover the whole society and they want to conquer the whole world, but not like Christians do. They do it by any way and even by murder.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I find it interesting that God has used women like yourself, another woman in the United States, Christy White, about the same time. She spoke out in the cathedral in Washington, D.C., and we've met with her. We've actually interviewed her as well. But it's interesting that God has used women to confront Islam, knowing the background of how Muslims look at women, you know, and so that I could see how that could be very difficult for them to swallow. That God would use a woman to confront the problems of their religion.
Yeah, they don't like it, you know, because women are nothing for them.
Right, right.
We are less than rubbish, probably. Yeah, and you also, Dale, you can see in the Bible, in Genesis, that Satan would hate us.
Right.
And we would hate him, and also in Psalm 68, I think it's not in all the translations, but in the original what Old Testament is?
Hebrew, yeah.
Hebrew, yeah, of course. You can find out in Psalm 68, verse 11, that a huge crowd of women would proclaim the good news. So I believe. And I heard it from several men of God, that in this time God probably uses many women to defeat Satan. So hallelujah, he can use whoever he wants. Yeah. And in the spirit there is there's no difference in value. So God can use whoever he wants, and whoever is there.
I know some Christians have difficult time with women speaking, especially in the church. You know, they have this idea that the women should be subservient, and they kind of put themselves almost under an Old Testament Jewish law, or almost like the Muslims do. Yet we see Deborah was a judge in the Old Testament. God used her, right? And we see a number of women in the New Testament. We see them used in prophecy as prophetesses. So why not now, huh? Well, we just want to encourage you. We thank you for what you're doing, and there's a lot of people that pray for you, and we hope that our interview will speak to people.
So may I add something to what Dale said about Deborah? Because I studied Deborah in the Bible and the position or the role of the women in the Bible. And I love how God is, and he has never changed, right?
Right.
So, and he used Deborah, a woman, as the judge over his whole nation, his nation, Israel. And Deborah was number one person over whole Israel, and she was a prophetess. So it means she had 3 positions, and she was number one, and God never changed. So this is very interesting. And some people say God would use women because he could not find a man. I don't believe this.
We are traveling a little bit of the similar path, her and I. Recently, I had been put on administrative leave from my job working for a school district. I had made a simple post on my private Facebook page, shared page with my husband, about an immigrant walkout day, and our classes just were not so crowded, and received a lot of backlash. Had been put on paid administrative leave, have received many death threats, people posting pictures of our house online, encouraging people to stop by and visit us, all types of things like that. I'm sure not a drop in the bucket compared to what Heidi has experienced. Heidi, how long did it take from the time that you spoke out in the cathedral until you started receiving backlash? How long was it? Was it immediate? Was it a couple of days? Was it a couple of weeks?
a good question. I never thought about it. Yes, it came after, a little bit started directly because this PE blog, as I mentioned, this in Germany, they wrote about it and they published this video. So something happened directly after it, but more after CBN showed the video.
Okay.
And more than this happened after I stood up in public in Frankfurt am Main in 2015 when I organized demonstrations, and I just was there to speak out the truth about Islam, something, and about also our government and about the media, and so then they really started to attack me.
Okay, so the first attack came from when she spoke in the cathedral, and then after that when she spoke in public, and actually the authorities and the common people wanting to shut her down. How has this changed your life as far as living in your hometown and living in Germany? Or do you pretty much keep the same schedule? Are things the same for you, or are they vastly different?
It became very much different because, as I mentioned, my husband lost his job. So, and we had to struggle with this, and our first month after it, we could not pay the rent of our apartment. So, because we were not prepared, and my husband, it's another theme, but he still has to pay some other loans. So, and the owner of the company was not allowed to fire him.
To fire him.
The owner of his company was not allowed to fire him. So our life changed totally. And I have been a teacher till 2010. Yeah, and so the leftists, they attacked me. I don't know how they did it. They wrote or they sent something to all of my business connections, what they could find out, and they slandered about me. And so I got emails and just letters from the banks, from lawyers, from all people I have been connected, because I had an educational institute and I had a homepage in the internet, and I had to close it because each one made a complaint because they were connected with me. So they destroyed everything. So maybe they are happy about it, but it's okay for me, so I can handle. And so it's also, or it has been hard to start a new business, because mainly in Frankfurt and also in other areas, the people know me. So some don't know. Sometimes they look at me and they say, you look very familiar to me. And then I think, oh, hopefully they don't find out if they know me or not. So, but it's really hard. I thought about because I wanted to support or to help my husband also with finances, but I did not the first time I did not dare to be hired again, because they know me. I didn't want to be in public, and I knew that they would threat those business people.
Yes.
Because of me, and I didn't want it. And so it's it changed, but at the moment I'm used to it more than before, and I know God has His own plans, and there's much to do in the business of the kingdom. So and God always told me that I should work in His kingdom.
So I know from listening to your testimony regarding the event in the cathedral that you had said God had told you, God had spoken to you to go down to the cathedral and speak. And you really didn't know what you were going to do until you got there, right?
Yeah, I would not say that He spoke to me. I interpreted it. Yes.
Okay,
I,
yeah.
I felt,
felt it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
felt the Spirit. I felt His presence, and I saw something inside of me. It's sometimes not easy to explain to all people, but I think many understand what I mean. So
Yes.
I felt God wanted to use me very strongly.
So it wasn't anything that you had planned with a group of people or
No.
your church or anything like that. It was just strictly between you and God, and there was kind of like a holy unction, and you knew that you had to go down there.
Right.
What was your first thoughts when your word obviously wasn't received and they started to pick you up and take you out? You've never experienced anything like that before. You've never done this before, right?
No.
So what was going through your head?
I already knew what probably would happen, so I thought probably I would have just some minutes, even only some seconds, to do what was on my heart. So I expected something like this.
Okay. So what are you trying to impart or share with Americans when you come to America? What is some of your heartfelt expressions that you want to share with Americans?
Yeah. So the United States of America, they have been and they are still for me a Christian country. So you have such a great history. You had reformers here, and just today in Spokane, I stood there on a piece of, I don't say, it's a land tongue, I don't know, we say it in German, just beside the upper waterfalls. I stood there and there were some signs, and there was something written about the Christian pioneers here in Spokane,
Right.
in this area. And it touched me very much. I stood there and I said, Lord, do you want to tell me something? And I felt that the Holy Spirit said, you stand on holy ground. And this is what I felt. And after a while I left this little land tongue, and I went to the bridge beside and I cried. I felt the Spirit of God, and I felt the situation from your past, and in comparison to the situation today and the danger you face, the same danger we face in Europe. I think the United States of America are a little bit behind of us. I
agree.
am not sure if this is right. You are bigger and you are armed, we are not. And that's why I think it's more difficult to take you over than probably Germany. They know we don't have weapons. And the Germans are in another situation, because many Germans, they don't care about the country, they don't care about history, and so they, as I mentioned several times before, they don't have a German identity, they don't want to protect the country. But here in America, there are many, and I'm so proud of you, the Christians who understand the situation, and as Jesus said, the signs of the time. And you stand up. I'm really proud of you, and it encouraged me, it encouraged the Germans, the patriots, and it encouraged the remnant of the German Christians, that you are different here, I love it, and I feel myself under the same people, and but you face the same difficulties, and you have to be aware of it. It's not something we can handle out of our Christian minds. It's something totally different. And Thomas Jefferson understood the Barbary States. He understood what he had to do. And Americans, you have to do it again. Entschuldigung.
Back in 1988, Dale and I took a trip and went to England, and we were there doing missionary work for about 6 weeks. And our eyes were really opened at that time to what was going on in England with Islam. We came back and tried to share with our friends, and they just blew us off. You know, oh, you're reactionaries, you blowing things out of proportion, you're out of your mind, da 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 da. So then after 9/11 happened, our phones started ringing off the hook.
Oh.
People saying, oh, I remember when you started talking about this. And we had seen where England was at. We saw where France was at that time. France was in a much worse situation than England. And we talked to people in England, and they had said the same thing. France was saying, you know, England, learn from us. And then we were looking at England saying, we want to learn from England. But I don't think England learned very well from France, because now I think they have just as bad a problem, if not worse, as France and Germany. But with Germany, how are the people dealing with the full immersion of Islam into their everyday life? And I'm asking from our perspective, from what we see, is what we see on the news correct? Is there an incredible problem with immigration? Is it as bad as what we see on TV? And it looks bad. Germany, it looks bad. What are people's views of Angela Merkel? And are they loving what she's doing, or are people starting to rise up against her?
It depends. Many people understand already, and as you said, Peggy, more eyes are open now than before because of the change of the time. But there are still too many who still believe what is written in the fake news. I only can agree with what your president says. Almost all the medias, the mainstream medias, they lie on us. They don't report objectively. They just say something, they write something about, I don't know from where they got it or get it. So it means there's also a split. There are people who still believe the media, and those who listen to them and who are going ahead reading them, they believe what they see, what they read, and what they heard. And there are the others, they feed themselves with informations from the internet and from international medias. There are some who still inform us, and those people are those people are open-minded, and those people understand, and those people see the danger, and those people don't like Merkel because she really wants, I want to emphasize it, she wants to destroy Germany, she wants to destroy Europe. I cannot see it differently because I cannot believe that she doesn't understand what she is doing with us, because she rejects her own people, and she wants to replace us through those Muslims, mostly young Muslim men in military age, strong Muslim men. They don't look weak like refugees. They are strong. They want to conquer us, and this, not only Angela Merkel, also the other politicians, they opened the borders, and it's like they would have given us as a meal to the wolves. So we are.
And you have no way to defend yourself because
we have nothing.
You don't. The public doesn't have guns.
No, we don't have. We are not allowed to have a longer knife. We are not allowed to have guns.